So,
Thank you.
okay, so I wanted to start this meeting pretty much on time, and it's after 8 o'clock. And I am Jane Addams, and I am so happy that you came to the Jane Addams meeting. And I have so many twins, so many people like me in WILPF. WILPF has been my big love. When I got the Nobel Peace Prize, I left my money to WILPF. It means a lot to me. So I have one person who, this guest speaker tonight, it reminds me very much of, she has done so much, kind of reminds me of myself and all of you, because you all are working for peace. Judith Hand has worked for peace for a long time. And so I wanted her to speak tonight about a project that she has going on, that she's trying to get going with a lot of support. And so I will let her talk about it. I think I wanted to wait actually for a couple minutes. And first, if Darian was on, she wanted to say something too, but I don't see that she's on. So is Darian there? She wanted to kind of open up the meeting. She is the WILPF president.
I will call her and make sure everything, she's been having problems with her phone.
That's true. She's been having lots of problems with computers and phones and stuff. So while we're, okay, Ellen, if you do that, that would be great. And meanwhile, I'll just say hi to all of you. I'm so glad to see Susan and Cheryl and Jen Myers and Genevieve Brooks and Linda Ridley and Cynthia Jackson, George Friday, and Lenny is still with us. Great, for a short time anyway. Isvara just joined. Robin Lloyd is here. Regina Sneed, Joan Goddard. I think it's Neota Robinson. And yeah. Okay, good. And Nancy Rice and Dee Gotchalian. And Ellen Thomas is the tech person tonight. And she's just a wonderful tech person who set up this meeting. And she's calling Darian right now. So I was going to have some announcements at this time, but I haven't really gotten any announcements from anybody. So what I'm planning on doing tonight is just going through having the board and the issue committee chairs speak after Judith speaks. And then after each person speaks, there'll be time for questions and answers. And then we'll open it up to everyone. So
Darian is here.
Okay, I don't see her. But I'm gonna give her, here she is.
Sound a whole store full of boxes and cans, jars, jellies, and jams from 100 different lands, full of monosodium glutamate.
I hope you enjoyed Professor Louie there.
I did.
Professor Louie is wonderful. And I don't want to interfere with Judith Hand's presentation. Hello, Judith, and welcome. Maybe later I can provide a snippet from Professor Louie. He has quite instructive and bouncy music. So I'm trying to get on the screen here, and I think I am. Great. I just wanted to celebrate this wonderful inauguration of a new era of WILPF, where we'll be having wonderful speakers like Judith, who inform us about some of the latest directions and thoughts for peace and justice work, for making the world a better place, how to be effective and active as lifetime activists. This is not a momentary thing. This is what we do day after week, week after year, year after decade. And they're pounding on my roof, so I'm going to go into mute from here on. But I'm looking forward to hearing Judith, and I welcome everyone to this celebratory first round of expanding the Jane Addams.
Thank you, Darian. That was so nice that you welcomed us all. And this first Jane Addams branch open to all WILPF members and anyone else if you want to bring them in. That'd be great. Okay, but Judith, We're so excited to hear you. I don't know how many of the people here got to go to your website and listen to some videos that you worked on. You have numerous videos, you've written books, but go ahead and give us your presentation, and thank you for coming.
So thank you for having me. I just suddenly realized I'm really honored to be on the very first of your new Jade Addams branch. That's quite an honor. I really appreciate it. I'm here actually to explain a project that is geared to ending international wars. It's called Project Enduring Peace, and PEP, or PEP for short. And my background gives me an uncommon perspective on this subject matter. My PhD is in evolutionary biology and animal behavior, including human behavior, not sociology or political science or history. It's evolutionary biology. And my undergraduate studies were focused on cultural anthropology. And for over 20 years, I've studied the relationship of women to war from that perspective, and it's led me to some uncommon conclusions. About 10 years ago into this research, I concluded that it was at least theoretically possible for humans to end this behavior, which is a culturally learned behavior, war. At about the same time, I also concluded that one of several necessary conditions for doing so would be the global empowerment of women. That ending wars was not and is not going to be done by men alone. And it's worth pointing out that humans clearly have arrived at the point where we would like to end wars. Men have been the driving force behind several treaties that had that goal, and those treaties unfortunately all fail, primarily because they lack a means of enforcement. For example, Putin's invasion of Ukraine was not prevented. And we have China hovering over Taiwan. So until last year, I sadly believed that ending international war still wasn't a realistic possibility. And the good news I bring tonight for this first meeting is that I've changed my mind. And one of the several reasons I've changed my mind, a principal reason, has to do with the empowerment of women. When I started this research, there were not enough powerful and influential women around the world to have any chance of eliminating something so difficult to eliminate as war. But then one morning I was watching a TV show called Morning Joe, and the woman hostess, Mika Brzezinski, announced an upcoming women's meeting in Abu Dhabi. It was going to, some of you may be aware that Forbes magazine makes lists of things. Perhaps their most familiar list to all of you would be the annual compilation of the most wealthy people in the world. And this was going to be a Forbes summit meeting. And, excuse me. So Mika was saying, I got to check my notes here. So a few years ago, quite a few years ago, Forbes started putting out a list every year called 50 over 50. Some of you may be familiar with it. And this was a list of women over the age of 50 who were powerful and influential. And then not too many years ago, they started another list, 30 under 30. And these are young women who they consider powerful and influencers, if you will. And as Mika was started naming names who were going to be at this meeting in Abu Dhabi, that's when it hit me. There now are enough powerful women around this world to make this project possible. Women in every area of human endeavor, from military, business, entertainment, politics, you name it. Whatever it is, there are women now who hold powerful positions not in every country of the world, but enough of them that if they united, they could have an influence. That's why I've changed my mind. Now, for your next meeting, you're going to have Andre Sheldon speak to you about another women's movement that has basically the same objective. And Andre and I have agreed that for many years on a couple of things. One is that this must be a woman's movement. And he will likely mention the names of many women who could join PEP. The starting place for an international ending to war would be a treaty. And the hitch is to have a plan. How do you get that treaty? Project Enduring Peace is a plan. Andre and I have also agreed that the goal of this women's movement isn't to determine which political system or which religion or which group of powerful people will lead us into the future. The goal needs to be to create a better future for children. The children now, the children to come. This is a project that is built around the welfare of children. So consequently, PEP is a woman's designed and woman-led movement. Mothers, grandmothers, sisters, and aunts. My friend Ann Hoiberg has studied women's movements for many years, and she and I agreed right away that the place where we could go look to find women already organized who would be able to join with this effort for PEP would be to go to WILPF. So that was why our first outreach was to WILPF. So what is the plan? A website outlining the PEP's basics, if you will, is included within a much larger website that also housed the results of my research. It's a website called A Future Without War. And so to look at the PEP basics, we're going to go there. And that's where I'm going to, if all goes well, share my screen with you. I've been told that I can click on share the screen. I can click on Safari search. I click on share. And I hope that all of you are now looking at my search screen. Do I get any nodded heads on that?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thumbs up and nodded heads. This is good. I'm going to go up here to the search bar. And unfortunately, something appeared from Zoom that covers up my search bar. Let me lower the page a little bit. Here we go. So to get to this, you would go up here in your search bar and you would type in projectep.org. That's the short version, projectenduringpeace.org. Click on it. And if all comes up, here we have Project Enduring Peace. As I said, it's embedded in a larger website. At the very top here, you see the logo for A Future Without War. And also across the top, if you go across over here, these nav bars take you to the variety of things that this very large website has. And by the way, over here, contact. If at the end of this meeting, you want to ask more questions about PEP, or you think, gee, I think maybe I would like to serve on the steering committee, because that's what we're doing right now. We're putting together the steering committee. And if you would like to contact me, that's where you would go, Future Without War. Click on the contact thing, and it should bring up here a place where you can go contact me. I want to go back over here, however, to overview, away from contact, and click on overview, which has a drop-down list of a lot of essays and other kinds of things that are some of the more relevant things in this website. And because I originally realized there's an awful lot, it's a huge amount, people can't wade through this, to make it educationally worthwhile, something that someone could use as a learning tool, it needed to have a study guide. So the first thing under overview here on the far left of the nav bar here is study guide. If you click on study guide, whoops, yeah, study guide. It has introductory material, about you need a study guide, how to use the study guide, who is it good for, how does it work? And then as you scroll down a little bit, you get to a way of grouping ideas, things that are in here that have the same basic idea, and provide links to them. So a person doesn't have to wander around at random through this huge website. So for example, the first topic is why an ending war campaign is now in our time uniquely poised to succeed. And if you click on each one of these, which I'm not going to do, that's too much time, but if you click on these, they will take you to things that are related to that. If you scroll down a little further, there's some action plans. I think I've changed them because a lot of things have changed within the last 2 or 3 years. So those plans are not the plan. The plan now is PEP. But if you go down a little bit further, past keys to obtaining success and elements, key to maintaining the peace over time. That's a whole different subject. Nonviolence, what it is, its uses, and so on. Those are essays about that. The big one down here that I want to point out to is gender and war. These are all things that explain why PEP has so much emphasis on women. Anyone who wants to be a PEP supporter needs to understand why this is a woman-led project, and that you could look at these and so on. So that gives you an idea what's with a future without war and the overview. If you skim all the way across to the right, you come to the nav link for Project Enduring Peace. Click on it, and we're back to that original page that it brought up. And this is the home page, and it simply has 2 quotes. One of them is from a favorite peace worker of mine, who is Howard Zinn. Howard Zinn, that's the quote down here. But the one I want to read to you is this one up here from the son who is the founder of Baha'i, the Baha'i faith, because I love this quote. So it will come to pass that when women participate fully and equally in the affairs of the world, when they enter confidently and capably the great arena of law and politics, war will cease, for women will be the obstacle and hindrance to it. That's really the great hope here, is that the time is right now for women to enter into those arenas. Then we have basically 4 sections to the website: about, rationale, mission statement, and how the treaty would work. If you click on about, all of these, by the way, when you click on them, you will get a beginning section that's quite wordy, background information on that particular subject. The about section concentrates on that PEP is unique in 3 main ways. It's led solely by women. It focuses on the well-being of children. And the primary goal is anticipatory, not reactionary, not do things after a war has started and so on, or trying to be prevent war. It's arranged to be anticipatory, which gets explained when I talk about how the treaty works. If you scroll on down a little bit further, this homepage also talks about the people who in 2023 were working with me. It introduces the people working with me to figure out what PEP should look like and how it would work. So that's the homepage. The about page, I'm going to scroll up a little bit here. So the about page talks about I did that. We moved from the about page to the rationale. The rationale page, again, like all of them, has a big introductory section about war and PEP. But basically, this is what I began to write at the beginning of last year, when it became clear to me that the time was right, we could do this. What is the rationale here for doing this now? This talks about the reasons why we should do it. It includes reasons, the necessary reasons why it's urgent now for humans to do something about war and using war as a way to resolve conflicts. So I talked a little bit about that, eliminating the tragic waste of wars, eliminate the fear the nations have of being invaded, and so on. I'm not going to go through this. This is getting down in the weeds. But if you're interested, you read through this and it will explain to you the rationale that builds up to the conclusion down at the end that it's reasonable to conclude these things, that we can put this thing together now, and we should begin at the bottom. We should begin as soon as possible the hard work to secure such a treaty with the determination to continue the work for however long it takes. This is not a short-term project at all. So that's the rationale page. Then you have a mission statement page. Basically, the mission statement, let me scroll over here a little bit. The mission statement page does two things. It tells you what PEP will do. You know, what are the listing things of we are going to be, the goals, our immediate goals, and so on. What are we going to do? But it also lists things, the things that we are not going to do. These are, I think they're down here. The focus of part 2 is the kinds of things that you would have to do to get enduring peace. This is called Project Enduring Peace, because there are many, many things besides getting a global peace treaty that are required if you wanted to end not just international war, but civil wars. That's a much bigger deal. And I have on the website there, I call them cornerstones of enduring peace. If you go to A Future Without War website, there's a whole nav thing that says cornerstones. And it lists all 9 of these cornerstones with an essay for each one of them. For example, the kinds of things that you have to do is empower women. You have to, these are lists some of them. We have to shift our economies to sustainable economies. We have to foster and spread the maintenance of liberal democracies. There are all kinds of things that thousands of people around the globe right now are working on these things. That's not what PEP will be working on. PEP will be focused on getting this, what I consider the foundation of a major paradigm shift in conflict resolution, which is ending international wars and spending those resources on all these other things that are necessary to have enduring peace. So that is the mission statement page. And then lastly, let's say you're into this and you're saying, okay, well, so, but how's this going to work? How would the treaty actually work? So that's the last section. You'll notice that I mentioned right away, treaty enforcement, how and why the treaty would work. A lot of people said they didn't like the word enforcement. They definitely didn't like the word using sanctions. So I switched and thought, yeah, words are important. So rather than using sanctions, we're going to be talking about the consequences for non-compliance with the treaty. If you sign up this treaty and you ratify it with all the other nations of the world, and there's non-compliance, what will be the consequences? But happily, the idea is being that this is anticipatory. And how, by the way, I mentioned at this beginning part also, again, the 2 problems with the previous treaties. Why didn't they work? For example, enforcement was the big one, but there was another one. If you scroll, I go through why and blah, blah, blah about Ukraine and so on. But another big one is lack of universal cooperation. The other treaties often had nations that didn't sign on to them. They were not part of the treaty. And when Putin invaded Ukraine, there were many talking heads that pointed out the very simple fact that if Russia and China and India and Iran were also sanctioning Russia, or had made it very clear with all the rest of the nations of the world that if they invaded Ukraine, there would be consequences for the invasion from all of them, that Putin probably wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. It depends upon global unity and to threaten consequences and to mean consequences. So how would it work in detail? I skim packed the positive consequences of an enforceable treaty. You got to think about it a little bit, what this would mean for the world positively. If people knew that their nation was not going to be invaded, what would that mean for the people of that nation? If you knew you didn't have to spend money maybe on having an upgrade of your nuclear weapons, because there wouldn't be any opportunity for using nuclear weapons if everybody signs on to the treaty. But anyway, moving down in brief, here's how a binding treaty. We wanted to get away from the word enforceable because we're peace people and we like to use nonviolent methods for what we do. And we don't like to think about using force at all, but we're realistic about dealing with what the world really is. So what do we want? We want a binding treaty, a treaty that people will abide by and stay bound to. And it starts listing the characteristics of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs, but that, again, too much getting into the weeds. I'm not going to go in the details, but you can go and read how this treaty would start and then how it would work and presumably how it would all turn out. So I think at that point, let me scan over here. I believe that covers the basics of PEP for you to go and explore. But before I want to conclude, I want to point out that there are many, many, many historical and current contemporary things that have happened that have been done by thousands of people before us that opened up a window of opportunity for us to actually succeed at something that the vast majority of people around the world in all nations believe is absolutely impossible for humans to do. But we aren't starting out from scratch. And so I would encourage you, I think you would find it worthwhile to check out a video I created called, it's down here, Ending War is Achievable, 5 Reasons Why. You will find it on the AFW website. So I'm going to go back up here to scroll back up, go over to the homepage of A Future Without War. Yes, I believe you still have the screen, I hope. You click on the homepage. Hello. There we go. This is the Future Without War homepage. If you scroll down a little bit, you will go to 2 videos being offered, and this is the one that I'm talking about. Ending War is Achievable, 5 Reasons Why. I think you will find it very interesting to look at the history of things that have already been done by thousands of people before us that give us this window of opportunity. So before I take questions, we're there now. I want you, please forgive me, because I am going to end with 2 cliches. Number 1, first, PEP is an idea whose time has come. And second, women around the world need to unite and rise up and seize the day. So I hope it didn't take too much more than 12 minutes, which was what I was supposed to have. And now I'm ready for questions.
Okay, thank you
Turn
so
it
much.
back over to you, Diane.
Okay, and I'll try to see, so I think I need to get back to the major screen so I can see if anybody has any questions for you.
Should I leave it up or should I stay stopped?
No,
Screen share.
take it down, please.
Take it down, okay?
We put your chat, your
Oh, okay, I see one
URL in
hand.
the chat. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Linda Riley has a question, so go ahead.
Hi, this is Dr. Ridley. Dr. Han, I enjoyed your presentation. Let me also say I enjoyed your videos. I watched them. That sexual dimorphism was very interesting. I'm curious, this is a global effort naturally. How do you integrate the violence that we see here domestically in the United States. How do we attack that? What do I mean by that? You talked about women and children, and there are women and children living within a violent environment, whether it's being unable to control their own bodies, whether it's several states that don't want to fund the feeding of children in schools, and so they've turned down federal monies for that. And I needn't go into such things as police brutality, that kind of thing. How do we, in this domestic environment, create the standing that we need in order to talk globally to other countries, if that makes sense?
Well, certainly it's very difficult since we have major problems within our own country that we haven't resolved and that we aren't taking care of. And it does limit our credibility with other nations when we call on them to do things. I don't have any quick solution to that problem. That is one of the kinds of things that get involved with what kind of things need to be done to end civil wars. We're in kind of a civil social war. It's a war of ideas in this country more than actually a physical civil war so far.
I would push back a little bit and say it is physical. There are people who are dying over this that we don't talk about, but that's a conversation.
Yeah, well, I guess what I would say is that I have, if you go on a Future Without War website and you look at the kinds of organizations that are doing the things that would bring about an enduring peace, I have lists of, under most categories, of sometimes 100 organizations, sometimes only a handful. For example, the one that is groups of organizations that are working on empowering women, I think the list was like 70 or 80, 90 organizations long. If you look under the list for organizations that are trying to do something about young men, the problem with young men, if you do not give young men a sense of belonging and community and a sense of a future and give them work, meaningful work that they can get, if you're not doing that, that's one of the root causes of wars, ultimately. Warmongers can reach those young men and give them a cause and recruit them to some kind of very unfortunate behavior. So I list a number of organizations that focus on trying to enlist young men in positive ways and in nonviolent ways. If you're talking about, for example, poverty, that's where you start talking about economics. We need to change our economic system. And I list organizations that are working on trying to do something about. It's not capitalism per se that's the problem. It's unregulated capitalism. Everybody is out for the money and thinks only about money, is not willing to put resources into the kind of things you're talking about. Where do we spend our money? Now, let me say about that. It is my belief that if women are included in the United States, maybe it will start in the United States, but PEP should not be a United States project, period. It must, from the beginning, be internationally oriented because of the problem you pointed out. Who are we in the United States to go tell the rest of the world what they should be doing? We must make PEP from the very beginning international. WILPF has a national group, but WILPF is also international. So if we get it started along WILPF groups and along women's groups in the United States, but always reaching out to similar groups, sister groups in other countries, that would be an important thing for PEP to do, because we can't, as you point out, we are not the perfect example of everything, and this is going to be an international project. I don't know if I've wandered a bit, but I hope I've answered some of your question.
That's quite a bit. You've covered a lot of ground.
There's a lot of ground to cover.
Thank you.
I see two more hands up, and the first one is Eileen Kurkowski.
Yes,
Eileen?
thank you very much. Judith, I really appreciated your message. I did have a chance to read some of the material that Diane sent, and I was getting excited, and then I got my practical side up. How is this going to work? How are you going to approach it? And your answers were helpful, your comments. I have a quick comment, and then I have a question. The comment is that I worry about violence on women. For anybody who's speaking up in some of these other less developed countries, they're getting killed. That's the comment. The second is a question. Is there any chance that anybody has talked with Ray Atchison? I know Andre has tried to reach her on a number of occasions. I'm not sure he ever reached her, but I'm talking about the people who helped to and worked for over a decade to get the TPN moving, TPNW, I'm sorry. And it seems like some of those strong women might and should be in on something like this. What do you, well, yeah, have you talked to any of them is the question, I guess. Thanks.
Ray Atchison is on my list of people to start approaching to be on the steering committee. But I'll tell you an interesting thing. I've already tried to reach a number of women, not so many, but 5 or 6 women who I thought were competent and would be great as to help us put this together, and because they have experience. And the thing you find out right away is, well, yeah, it's a great idea, but I had this other thing I'm working on. I can't do it right now. So this is a problem. I expect I'm going to contact Ray once it's one step at a time. I have a list of women. Ray is on that list. And as I mentioned, Andre Sheldon will bring, I'm sure, a list of names of lots of women that we could reach out to.
That's
Let me
for sure.
say, the thing is, this is a one step at a time thing. And once we get the steering committee together, our first task is going to be to decide what will be our launch event. How do we intend to launch this campaign? And how do we intend to promote it? What will we do to promote the launch event? Because you have to start from somewhere. And we will be in the middle. The steering committee will be in the very middle of deciding what is the best launch event and what's the best way to promote that. I have some ideas, and we're going to be talking about those ideas. But one of them was a road trip. I mentioned to Diane that we might take a road trip across the country and stopping at WILPF groups and peace groups and women's groups and go to college campuses and talk to them and tell them we're starting this campaign, this international women's movement, and let them know what it's all about. And we would be, the whole name of the campaign would be, I started out with Reaching Rachel Maddow. The cross-country trip would be Reaching Rachel Maddow, because we would like to contact her because she is a person with a very high platform. These are the kind of people that we will have to attract if we're going to look for and bring in other powerful and influential women. Rachel, I thought of because I know her to be an academic. I'm an academic. She's an academic. She has a PhD in political science. She has a very high personal platform, and she's written about war, and she's very knowledgeable. But then I thought, well, how about also including, why not reach out to Mika Brzezinski, the woman who's right ahead and in the thick of Forbes's 50 over 50 and 30 under 30s and all these meetings in Dubai. Let's see if we can't get the attention of and bring in Mika Brzezinski to PEP. And there are other similar people that have different reasons for being contacted. So that's an answer to 2 questions. How do you propose to do this? You start out one step at a time doing your research. And then you always keep in mind that you got to be attracting to the public. What do you do to attract attention and to promote the idea? I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my...
And more. Thank you.
Okay, so we're getting short on time. So
Okay.
if both hands that are raised could be quick and the response is quick, and then we can go on with the rest of the meeting. So Teresa?
Well, I don't know how quick I can be. And I do apologize that I've been kind of in and out of the conversation. I'm having a very busy night. But just for those who I don't know, which is most of this group, I've never seen Dr. Ridley before. And so it's great to know if she's a WILPF member. But I find what I did here about PEP, which I don't know what PEP is, but from the description, I believe it's Judith who was speaking, it sounds extremely elitist. And in this UN decade for people of African descent, when African women around the world are fighting for end to all forms of violence, and to hear a presentation that is elitist and Eurocentric as well, it's very disappointing, very disappointing.
Okay, well, I just think that because of time, we're going to go on. And I guess maybe you said you didn't hear the whole thing. But anyway, the website is up there for you to look at. I'm sure Judith will consider what your comments are. So Nancy?
I would invite her to contact me so that I might be able to reply to her comments with that contact thing at A Future Without War. There's a contact section there.
Okay, good. So Nancy Rice? You're muted.
Yes, my question is, you mentioned Russia invading Ukraine as an example of a country not going by a treaty, but how do you propose people finding out the preceding history on why they may have invaded? Because we're in an era of imperialism, and there's a lot of sorting out that comes with understanding why countries do things. So, and you mentioned Rachel Maddow. My comment on that is just because she's famous doesn't mean she's wise. So there's all these complicating factors of how we tend to wars. So my question is, how do you propose to address people learning history when they don't know it, and when the media is making it very difficult for people to get backgrounds?
This project is not built around the idea of solving any other problem than one thing, getting an international, a treaty against international wars as a foundation for a lot of other things. And I'm sorry that the feeling is that it's elitist, because some of my great examples, not Eileen, if you would go on my website, one of my heroines is Lema Gaboy from Liberia, who got the Nobel Peace Prize for her work using nonviolence to bring peace to her country. And there are several other Nobel Peace Prize women who are not elitist, or they're workers in the field of peace and bringing about peace. So the fact that we are focused on one specific thing, getting a treaty, doesn't make this project elitist. I would argue and I recommend, please, if you have that feeling, to go on the website and read extensively where we talk about the use of nonviolence in a lot of countries around the world by women, who, yes, they're very brave. That is risky. This is not going to go down easy. If you think this is a walk in the park that's being proposed here, then you're very naive. this is going to have all kinds of people who are against the idea from day one. So it's going to take women of courage and women who are willing to work together to unite and use what we know. We've had lots of examples of how to use nonviolent techniques and strategies to bring about social change. There are books, many books written about how you get social change, and it's done by using nonviolence. So in 12 minutes, I cannot answer and give a complete picture. I just wanted to point out the main subjects that are involved and then invite you please to go to the website and check it out.
Okay, there's one more hand raised, but Regina, can it again real quick because we do want to get on.
Oh, I was looking at your website and I don't think you've drafted a treaty yet. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay. Okay, because I don't see
real quick. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and looking briefly through your resources, you really need to start with an understanding of international law to understand how how a treaty would be drafted. So I think you need to start by talking to people who have already drafted such treaties in the past. You have Kellogg Briand on your website, which is probably the best treaty we could possibly just enforce. That one, we would need to write a new one. But,
that's right. And by the way, that's wonderful that you mentioned that, because that is what we think our launch project should be. Asking maybe 3 women who have actually worked on and achieved international treaties, who now know all about what is involved in getting an international treaty, and asking them what they would recommend would be our first steps. We have to do some homework, as you point out. I agree completely.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted Ray Atchison. I'm sorry, I'm interjecting. It's Eileen. That's why I thought Ray would be a good person.
Has she worked on a treaty?
I think you should talk to David
UN. Oh yes, that it went into force on January 22, coming up, the anniversary. It was 1921.
Okay, well,
she wrote a book about it. Her book is so detailed. She went through the whole process and the committees and how they agreed. And then finally, a strong group of younger folks, I would say 20s, 30s, predominantly pulled it together. It was impressive.
Yeah, the book I studied, and there are books about these things. You could read a million books. Was Jody Williams' book on getting the landmine treaty. And it's also details that I cover on my website, I believe, the steps that they went through to get enough people together, a coalition together in order to get the landmine treaty. So, or no, it's not landmine treaty. Yeah, landmine treaty. So all of these questions are well received. I appreciate that you're interested in the idea. That's the thing. Get people in saying, well, yeah, maybe we could do this. And what do we do first? And what do we do next? That's great.
It is. And thank you so much, Judith. And thank you everyone for listening. So now what I wanted to do was go through the roster of the WILPF leadership. And so we're going to start off with Darian. Darian, did you want to say something as president? Maybe she's not on. Okay.
She's dealing with a homeless person who knocked at her door. It's in the chat.
Oh,
and
okay.
Evidently, this homeless person has a kiddo who also needs food.
Okay.
She can talk last, maybe.
Yeah, that would be fine. Okay. And then program committee chair, George Friday, did you want to say anything?
Surely.
ahead.
And you'll tell me when I'm down to 30 seconds or so. I'm George Friday. I live in Shelby, North Carolina. I'm in the Southern Piedmont branch, and I'm program committee chair. If you haven't ever attended a program committee chair meeting, I will put a link in the chat to register. We have one on the 30th. We meet on the last Tuesdays of each month at 8:30 in the evening. And And there is a couple of things I want to tell you guys about as quickly as I can, because I've heard I have a minute. So that probably means I've got about 43 seconds left. Okay, so two years ago or so, I got involved in a project led by folks at American University. And the core of that, which I think really resonates with our talk tonight that we had, is about changing the culture of violence and ending militarism. Very exciting stuff. One of the things that has come out of that over the last year, and certainly influenced by women's voices, I'm one of those women, there's not a lot. Another great person that is part of this, and here's who invited me to be in, is a woman I met years ago named Maha Hilal. She's written a book called Innocent Until Proven Muslim. She is awesome. And she's the person that got me involved in this. And one of the things we've been doing over the last 6 months or so is coming up with a project called Words About War Matter. I'm putting the link to the website there in the chat. What we came up thinking is part of what has to change from a culture of violence is our language and the language that we use. So I'm going to put these things in the chat and then shut up. One of the things I'll also put in the chat is a link to a beautiful video done by a Pakistani young man, I think, according to what I saw. Also, what's the other word? Also recommended by Maha, and I think you'll enjoy that. So I will be putting in the chat first, Words About War Matter. There's also on that same website, you will find PDF of the language guide for Words About War Matter, so that it's like using the word murdered instead of casualty, killed instead of casualty, things like that. And in addition to the guide, there's a one-page PDF, 10 steps specific to talking about Gaza. So I will give you those and then I will be done. Thank you.
Thank you. And I already sent to the Jane Addams members 2 attachments to something you sent out to the branches listserv. So everybody should be getting that you sent out, George. Okay,
Well, thank you.
We have a development chair. I don't think she's on. And we have 2 at-large board members. And I think Joan Goddard is on. Joan, did you want to say anything?
Just thank you very much. Looking forward to how this develops. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't see that Philip Cole was on. He is the other at-large member. Then we have 4 international representatives. And Janet Slaughter, did you want to say anything?
Just hi to everybody, and thanks to Dr. Hand for her report about this new organization. I'm very interested.
Great. Okay, then we have 3 other internationals, and they are Cricket and Dee Murphy and Julie Kabakani. And did any of you want to say anything? Okay, if not, we're going to go to the issue committee chairs, and I'm starting it off with Advancing Human Rights. And that is Cece Anderson and Teresa Elamine. Do either of you want to say something?
Yes, I do. And I'm not sure what the time is. I think George took more than a minute. So
She
what
did,
time?
that's the goal, is a minute, but yes, go ahead.
Well, the Advancing Human Rights Committee, I am a recently installed co-chair, and the other co-chair is Cece Anderson, who's with the Metro Atlanta branch, and she's board-elect as a personnel committee chair on the incoming board. And I'm organizer of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch, which is based in Columbus, Georgia. And I will add that I'm the founder and board chair of the Southern Anti-Racism Network, and we're the fiscal sponsor for the Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus, Georgia, and for the Metro Atlanta branch. And I would just say that the functioning of the branches in the U.S. section and in all the sections of WILPF around the world is crucial to move the project we call Advancing Human Rights. We have two working groups that are functioning. One is the UN Decade Reparations Working Group, which brings attention to the fact that the UN Decade for People of African Descent, which started in January of 2015 and will run until the end of this year. So we're in the final year of the UN Decade, which WILPF International passed a resolution at the last triennial to say all the sections around the world should support the UN Decade, and we're obligated to report on our work in 2025, next year, when the WILPF International triennial will take place. The other working group of the U.S. section, AHR committee, is ending mass incarceration and the death penalty. And we do meet monthly. Tomorrow, the UN Decade reparations working group will meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. And so I will stop there. Since
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Teresa. That was great. I see a hand up. Robin Lloyd, you want to say something?
Yeah, and that is that this is such a unique opportunity to have women who are from the international board, and I would just love to hear them to amplify more what they're doing. And Madeline Reese has resigned or retired, and what give us some sense, because we so rarely hear anything about international. Like, could Janet or others speak a bit?
Janet, do you want to say something?
Okay, Madeline Reese's resignation is, she was going to resign at the end of December, but she's postponed it till the end of June to better help with the transition. At present, there is a committee drafting the call for applications for her replacement. And after that, there will be another committee to review the applicants. So that's what's happening on that front. Meanwhile, the program that was passed in 2022, the international program, is still in effect, still working on demilitarizing masculinity and you know, the various other things WILPF has been engaged in. I suggest that you go to the WILPF International website. It's just wilpf.org. And if you're a member, go to My WILPF, where you can get more detailed information and see what some of the current campaigns are. There's a good statement on the war against Palestinians and several other things that are worth looking at. I'll stop there.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, so I'll go back to the issue committees now. And the next one is the Cuba and the Bolivarian Alliance. And Lenny is a co-chair with Cindy Domingo, but Lenny's here to speak. Go ahead, Lenny.
Yeah, hi. First, I want to say don't stop talking about Palestine, but we can't only talk about Palestine because other people are being damaged also, although the situation in Palestine is absolutely the most critical. There is going to be a campaign to get Cuba off the state sponsor of terrorism list that's going to be focused around January 24th. It's going to run from the 22nd to about the 3rd. This U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism has a devastating effect on Cuba's medical system because it makes it extremely hard to finance and get medical, supplies and reagents, among other things. Trump put Cuba on this list. Biden said in his campaign he'd take him off. He hasn't done it. He hasn't even started. The most recent report, State Department report on Cuba as a so-called state sponsor of terrorism has been released. It cites only two bits of evidence for this. One is that Cuba refused to extradite the ELN leaders from Colombia after peace talks broke down. But Colombian President Gustavo Petro says those arrest warrants have been suspended. They don't want the extradition. They want Cuba off the list of state sponsors of terrorism. So obviously that's null and void as a reason. The only other justification that they give is that Cuba continues to harbor several U.S. fugitives from justice wanted on charges. In other words, what they're asking Cuba to do is sell Asada Shakur, and Cuba is refusing. And that is what's going on. And that's why it's important that we stand with Cuba and get as much pressure on Congress and on Biden as possible to get Cuba off the list. The only reason for Cuba's designation, let me repeat this, as a state sponsor of terrorism is based on Cuba offering asylum to U.S. political prisoners of the COINTELPRO war on Black America, period. So
Thank you.
that's it. That's my minute. I'll post the links again. Get in touch with me if you want more info. Cindy's in Philippines. And yeah, I'll send you all the links.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the Disarm Committee is next, and I know Cheryl wanted to speak, and I don't think Ellen did, but Cheryl, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. You will have all received an e-alert this morning. I'm assuming you were all members of WILPF, and that specifically asks you next Monday, the 22nd of January, to get out on the streets at your favorite corner where you demonstrate on various topics to celebrate the 3rd anniversary of what we call the entry into force of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. This is a treaty that now has 70 countries have ratified it. They have promised that they will have nothing to do with nuclear weapons. They won't let them be built or designed within their territory. They won't let ships that carry nuclear weapons come to their ports. And so these countries actually represent a very large proportion of the world's population. And of course, we have 9 countries that do own nuclear weapons. And the United States and Russia between them have about 10,000 nuclear weapons, many of which are ready to be fired off. And any one of them could do an enormous amount of damage, much more damage than the Hiroshima bomb did on Hiroshima in 1945. So please look at your e-alert. It tells you ideas of what you can do next Monday, which is the actual day that we have called the entry into force. So as soon as 50 countries had ratified the treaty, then it went into force for those countries. So for them, nuclear weapons are illegal. Now we have 70 countries who've ratified it, and there's about 10 or 12 more that have signed it, but they're waiting to follow through and do the whole whatever, different countries have different ways of ratifying treaties. But it's a very good example of why treaties are a good thing that we should be promulgating, which is what Judith's project would create a different treaty. So many of you already did this. Every 22nd of January for the last 3 years, we've celebrated this treaty. So many of you already have the banners, you have the documents that we've provided, so you can get out with the banner. Hopefully you can find it in the back of the closet. It's a federal issue, so you should stand outside a federal building, and you're saying, oh, but I'm not in DC. But every post office is considered a federal building. And I think most of you live in towns or close to towns that have post offices. So that's a good place to go and show your banner and ask. So many people in Congress don't know about this treaty. They are not very much into foreign affairs. So at least the e-alert gives you the phone numbers and the idea that you can phone your congressperson to ask them to co-sponsor another bill that's sitting there waiting to be dealt with in the Foreign Affairs Committee, which is HR 2775. So if you just follow the links in that e-alert, you'll learn more about these bills that HR 2775 would eliminate the US's weapons. We would sign the TPNW. That would save a bunch of money, and that's the money that we would then move over to human needs to improve the healthcare system, get more people getting good healthcare, and so on. So please do look at your e-alert and take action this coming Monday. Now, I know Monday is a work day, so you could actually do some things over the weekend if it's more convenient for you. And there are people doing this all over the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Ellen, you want to say something? You're also
Yeah.
a co-chair.
Yes, I'd like to speak to HR 2775. It isn't just the United States that would get rid of its nuclear weapons. It's that the United States will join with other nuclear powers to get rid of the nuclear weapons. And the TPNW is the best thing we've got to get us in that direction. But the money that is being used for nuclear weapons would go instead to convert the war economy to providing human needs such as carbon-free, nuclear-free energy and environmental restoration, housing, healthcare, education, the things that we need as human beings in order to survive. It's the Warheads to Windmills campaign that is taken off, spearheaded by Nuclear Ban US, but other groups are joining on. And so be on the lookout for warheads to windmills. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next issue committee is DPOW, or Domestic Prisoners of War. I don't think D is on. And then we have Earth Democracy, and Nancy Price, I see, is on. So go ahead, Nancy, if you want to say something. I don't know if you had planned on saying anything.
Yes, thanks very much. Hello, everybody. I'd like to say that Earth Democracy is going to come back onto the current website with new text and new projects. We have been focused very much since 2020 on PFAS, the forever chemicals, and now it's time to get back to our program before 2020. I will be joined by Jean Hayes of the Fresno, longtime member who's lived in Fresno for decades. Jean will be joining me as co-chair, and we will be reconstituting our coordinating team. I'd just like to say that our focus has always been on present and future generations and the precautionary principle. Just to mention very quickly, we will be focusing on the human right to safe and affordable and sufficient water, on water privatization, keeping water in public hands, educating about the Sustainable Development Goals and how they can be achieved without comprehensive and global privatization of water and sanitation. We will be focusing on climate chaos and militarism, on the rights of nature, and the contribution of many groups to pass rights of nature ordinances in their communities to recognize the rights of trees or rights of rivers or rights of crops, for example, wild rice in Minnesota. And we will be linking climate chaos to militarism. And that's probably enough for us to begin to work back, to work on. And I'd like to mention that we are collaborating with the Our Children's Trust, which is a group of youth who have several important lawsuits against states for not recognizing that they need to support abandoning fossil fuels and support children who see that their rights to a clean and sustainable future is being compromised by continuing to use fossil fuels, and there needs to be a just transition to green, sustainable energy. So thanks very much, and you all can look forward to learning more about Earth democracy through some of our e-news or Peace and Freedom articles. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, so MEPJAC is next, which is the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee. And they have quite a few people that alternate or work on it. So I hope that will you just raise your hands or just start talking, whoever wanted to represent that group. Is there someone here who can? I know that I heard a couple people wanted to but couldn't come on tonight. So if no one speaks up, we'll just go on. They've done a lot with the Gaza situation because they're the experts and this is their area that they concentrate on. So, okay. So the last one is Women, Money, and Democracy. And I heard that Mary Beth can't be here tonight. So now we're on to the branches. Are there any branch leaders who wanted to speak about anything your branch is doing or anything? I wanted to give the branch leaders a chance to speak. Just raise your hand. I don't see any.
Well, I'll jump in because the Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus, Georgia came online in March of 2021. So we're celebrating our 3rd anniversary on March the 8th and March the 9th, International Women's Day. That evening, we're having a dinner event in collaboration with an organization called Girls Inc. And they work with girls in low-income communities to help them in ways that is so self-affirming. And it's just exciting to see what's being done with girls in public housing communities primarily. And so we'll be collaborating with them on Friday, March 8th for a dinner meeting. And hopefully we'll get a mini grant, which we will apply for in February to fund our activities. And then a luncheon meeting on March 9th. And Fannie Lou Hamer branch is devoted to working for affordable housing. And we did a Gaza Solidarity Vigil on November 9th, where we held our beautiful banner, ceasefire, ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. So the Fannie Lou Hamer is alive and working in Columbus, Georgia.
Sounds great, Teresa. Okay, I see Robin and then Eileen. Go ahead, Robin, from Burlington.
Yeah, okay, Burlington, Vermont, we're doing something different from usual. There's a class at the university in how to bake a Persian love cake for, for Valentine's Day. So 2 of us are taking the course. We're going to bake the cake. We're going to hold an event. We're going to eat the cake, but before that, we're going to do Sufi dancing, and we're going to talk about Persia and Iran, and we're going to try to love each other. Okay, that's it.
Sounds great too.
That will probably happen on the afternoon of Valentine's Day.
Ah, okay. Eileen from Boston.
I want to go to Burlington. I'm representing today Boston branch. We are continuing our letter writing times 2 years now, and really keeping the pressure on our legislators on various issues, particularly the wars, Ukraine, and then of course Gaza. But please, please look for the e-news that's going to come out in a couple of weeks. Well, actually, maybe less than that now. We had a superb speaker, Hani Murad, who worked for the UN for 17 years and is living in Newton, just outside of Boston, with his family, who wrote a book that was in our Jane Addams book competition, Ida in the Middle, Palestinian American Girl. Anyway, this man did a superb job of presenting the issues from his perspective. He grew up as a Palestinian in Israel. He was the oldest of a large family, had a lot of wisdom just built into him, and a resource list of almost 3 pages. However, in this e-news, you can watch it. We, thanks to Ellen Thomas, we recorded it and we wanted to share it with all. And we hope that other branches do the same when you have really superb speakers coming up. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I guess that's all for the branch announcements that we have. So does anyone have any questions or any comments that's out there? Cheryl, you have something? Great, go ahead.
Yes, my branch is the Peninsula Palo Alto branch here, about 35 miles south of San Francisco. And we steadfastly do a weekly vigil on Friday lunchtime at a corner in Palo Alto that literally thousands of cars pass us during that hour. And currently we are concentrating on asking for a ceasefire in Gaza. Previously, we were asking for a ceasefire in the Ukraine-Russian war. And come this Friday, we will be concentrating on the TPNW. So that is something that my branch does. We also have housing subcommittees, and we're also working on the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. So it's a variety of things that we do. And I would just like to say, Robin only talked about the Persian aspect, but the Burlington branch is doing a great deal to plead for the ceasefire in Gaza. And I do know that other branches are doing that also. Thank you.
Okay, Judith, we have Judith, and then why don't we end with Darian? Okay, Judith, and then Nancy, and then Darian, you can take us out. Okay, so Judith?
Yeah, just a quick correction. I had said that Jody Williams' book was about working on landmines, but the treaty she worked on was on cluster bomb. So just wanted to make that correction.
I like to, yeah, if I have something wrong, I like to correct myself too. Thank you. Okay, so Nancy and then Darian.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to call everyone's attention to the fact that the 75th anniversary of NATO is coming up in July, and they will be meeting for their birthday anniversary in Washington, D.C. And the summit is July 7 to 9. So already peace groups, environmental, other groups have been organizing. But I want to especially say that branches and members will find ways to participate if you aren't going to DC. And in particular, there is a Peace Walk 2024 being organized to leave from Augusta, Maine, to walk to Washington, DC. There'll be more information in the upcoming February e-news about this. and ways to participate. But even so, branches and members across the country can do local events simultaneously. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Okay, Darian? She's disappeared, it seems.
I'm here. I'm here. Sorry, I just have to unmute and get it organized. I just wanted to convey greetings from the Sacramento branch, which inconveniently has its regular meetings on the third Wednesday, starting half an hour from now. So I will be going there and reminding them all that not only should we change our regular meeting date, but they should be coming to these wonderful opportunities to connect with other WILPFers, get the latest word, and hear about exciting ideas. Beyond that, I just wanted to say our branch would be active as a branch, but so many of our members are already active in other ways. I'm the president. Ellen Schwartz is working with the tech team, the website committee, the mini grants committee, and more. We have a member active in the state teachers retirement group, another member active with Julian Assange and the Gaza situations. So like many branches, we put our attention into a lot of areas, and we try to bring that together into national WILPF work when possible. So I meant to report during branches, but I couldn't get my hand up in time. Beyond that, it looks like maybe Robin has some parting words, but I wanted to thank everyone for coming tonight. I know we are all busy, and yet gathering like this, even though it's virtual and all of the Sacramento branches are virtual now, it is still a powerful support for us so that we know that we are part of a larger movement, working in coordination, in harmony, working together, at times critical of our approaches so that we can learn and improve for the future. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. And Robin, I guess maybe you're going to close us out.
Well, not with something very interesting, but the fact is I am not able to show my face because it says unable to start video. You can't start your video because the host has stopped it. Now, there may be other people on this call who are not able to show their faces, and like me. So I'd be there. I have a face, but you can't see it, even though I click on start video. No, it says unable to start video. So that's just a problem, I think, with those of you who were okay, start my video. Yay, there I am, but I'm very weird looking.
Yeah,
but
you
we
are.
saw you earlier. You were on earlier, but
there
now
you go.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I know, but I've never seen that you can't show your video, but now it's remedied. Thank you.
The
Well,
FBI
Diane,
likes to come in now.
Diane, I do want to say thank you for doing this and letting all of us into the Jane Addams branch. So if I could just say that, how much we love you and love and solidarity, which I put in the chat. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
inviting us into the Jane Addams branch. Thank you so much.
And as I said earlier, Jane, I think all of you are like Jane Addams twins because you're supporting peace. You're working so hard to improve this world that we live in. And I just so love you all. And I think it's a great sisterhood. And so thank you for attending tonight. And there is a recording so people can access it. So until next month, the same time, the third Wednesday at 8, take care. Bye.
Right.
Thank
Save
you,
the
Diane.
chat. Save the
Thank
chat.
you,
It has-
everybody.
Save the chat and go to the WILP US Today YouTube channel to see this. It will be up there.
Okay, thanks.
WILP US Today. It's all one word.
Mhm.
Genevieve, it's good to see you here. And Joan. And we're the last.